Hello, Helen here. Today I'm going to be making a card that I'm going to do a textured background and then I'm going to do blending on top of that, and I'm also making some flowers with some vellum. I'm going to start off by doing my textured background. I've stuck down a front panel with some painter's tape onto a board just to keep it nice and flat while the texture paste is drying, and I'm going to use this Kaisercraft 12 by 12 stencil called Damask Squares, and I'm just going to use this bottom lattice one here, but I'm going to put it on a diagonal on my card, and I'm going to just sticking it down with some painter's tape just so that it doesn't move while I'm putting the texture paste on. I'm using Ranger texture paste and a palette knife, and I'm just going to smear a sort of rough oval onto the front of my card. Once I've done that, I'm going to just clean my palette knife with a baby wipe, peel the stencil off my card, take the painter's tape away, and then just pop aside to dry. And then I'm going to go away and clean the stencil. While that's drying, I'm going to get my flowers done. So I'm using my Misty, and I'm going to use this New Peony Scroll stamp set. I'm going to use 2 flowers and 2 leaves out of that set and setting them up on the edge of my Misty. While I'm using the Misty is because I'm going to restamp them, the flowers, once I've done the colouring, so I want them to stay in the same place. And I'm going to ink them with Hero Arts Unicorn White Pigment ink. I'm using this just so that I can see the flowers, see where the petals are for my colouring. Now I noticed when I got the stamp set out, it's one of my original New stamps sets that I bought. For some reason 2 of the flowers and 2 of the leaves have gone really yellow. I'm pretty sure I've used the other stamps when I was doing my last card with it, so it's not because of a particular ink I've used, because the whole stamp's gone quite yellow, so I'm just not sure why it's done that, but anyway it still works, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. So I've gone ahead and stamped on some vellum, and I've done double stamped to make sure that I got a good stamping, and then I'm drying it with a heat gun. I'm making sure that it's perfectly dry before I start doing the colouring. I'm going to colour it with Stabilo 68 pens. They're a water-based pen, but they've quite nicely pigmented, so I'm going to use those. Now I've picked out 4 blue colours out of the set, but I only end up using 3, and I've started doing the colouring on one of the petals, but because I've never used these pens on vellum before, I wasn't sure how it was going to go, and it turned out I ended up using a little bit too much water, and I didn't dry the colours in between, so it ended up starting to pull the paper, so I ended up changing my method. So what I ended up doing and what I found worked best was to do a base colour of the lightest blue. I just went from petal to petal randomly, making sure that I didn't do 2 petals side by side just in case there was any colour bleed, but it turned out there wasn't. So I did a few random petals, and then I went back over with the second blue just to give the petal a little bit of definition and darkness into the centre of the flower, and then blended it out with a barely wet paintbrush. I've got a little bowl of water plus a cloth right to my right hand side, and I'm wetting the brush and then dabbing most of the water off onto the cloth so that it's just barely damp, and spreading the colour out a little bit. So I continued doing this with the rest of the flower. I don't show doing all the flower. I'll move on to showing you what I did for the leaves, and then I'll come back and show you the second flower and how I did the third colour onto that. I do apologise if you can hear some slurping noises while I'm doing this audio. My little dog likes to be right beside me, and he always decides to do the slurping, cleaning himself when I'm doing my audio, so I hope you can't hear him. Here where I'm starting to do the leaves, you can see really how pigmented the Stabilo 68 pens are, so they actually put out a lot of colour. So I've just gone ahead and done exactly the same thing as I did the first flower, where I put a base colour of the palest colour of green. And then I'm going to go back and put the darker shade of green on the top, but it's very strong colour, so I've only just putting the bare hint of colour into the little bits where the veins of the leaves are, and then I'm spreading the colour out a little bit with the paintbrush. But then when the colour goes too far, I clean off the brush and then come back and push the paler green colour back down, just to blend it a little bit more. I'll put a little music on just while I finish painting the leaves, and then I'll go back and do the base and the second colour of the second flower, and then I'll come back and tell you what I'm doing for the darkest shade. So once I've finished the first two colours and blended them nicely, I'm going to go back in with a third, quite a bit darker blue. Now it is quite starkly darker, but I'm just going to use the barest hint in the very depth part of the petals, or where one petal overlaps another, just to give a little bit of contrast and where shadow would be. And it's amazing how much it brings the flower to life, but I'm just being very, very sparing, just with a hint of the colour. Once I'd finished the painting, because I'd gone over lines in some places and not in others, it was looking a bit of a hot mess, but I'd planned right from the beginning to put it back in my MISTI and re-stamp and emboss the ink around the edges, just to finish it off and make it look a lot tidier. So that's what I did. I put it back in the MISTI, and because I'd left the stamps in the MISTI in the meantime, I was able just to stamp over it with the same pigment ink and then put white embossing powder on. Or you could use Versamark watermark ink if you wanted to, but because I'd already used the unicorn ink, I used that. Put the white embossing powder on it and set it with the heat tool, and it tidied the whole flowers up nicely. Now that I've got my flowers finished, I'm going to go back to my textured background, which is now dry. I'm just going to put the stencil back over it just to protect the bits in between, and I am going to use some distress inks and some ink daubers on my finger to just blend some colours. I'm using tumble glass, shaded lilac and spun sugar, just 3 gradients of the colour, and I'm just overlapping the colours to blend them nicely, and that just gives the background a little bit of colour. Now I've got the blending done of my background, I've also gone ahead and fussy cut out the vellum flowers and leaves, and I'm ready to stick them onto the textured background, but I've played around for a little bit trying to decide which way I'm going to have the flowers and how I'm going to have the arrangement look, but in the end I settle on how I want it, and I stick the vellum on with some foam tape, but I end up only using tiny little pieces, and I try and position the tape onto the back behind where the darkest part of the petals are so that you can't see it through the vellum, and I think I managed that. Now the last thing I need to do is make a sentiment for the card, and I'm going to use this new stamp set that I've bought. I kept promising myself I was going to last year, and I finally did. An ultra new stamp called Birthday Greetings. It's got quite a range of different fonts for various different birthday sentiments. I really like it. And I'm going to use the little happy birthday and do it on black card with Versamark watermark ink and Ranger white embossing powder, but first using my powder tool because black's really bad for getting stray powder on it. And once I've done that, I trim the card down into a little thin strip, and I'm going to position the sentiment just underneath the flowers on the card and trim off the excess at the edge of the card. So that's the card today. I hope it's inspired you. I'll leave you with some still photos of the card. Please click the like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Have a great week. Bye for now.